fire burning. In the Old Testament, there were instructions regarding sacrifices and the fires upon which they were burned. Fires weren't allowed to go out. That was the responsibility of the priests to keep the fires burning even when the sacrifices were few. There is a fire within each of you, and you also have the same responsibility as the priests of the Old Testament to keep that fire burning. It is the fire of holy, sacred love. Holy because it is the love of God. Sacred because it is blessed by God. When moving through our daily experiences, we're often challenged by the activities and the choices of others around us. And sometimes those challenges seem to destroy even the thought of love, compassion, and understanding. You know those times when you just want to yoke somebody, just squeeze their neck till their eyeballs pop out. You see those little twiddly eyeballs? Yeah, y'all know because you're all laughing. You know you've had those experiences. But if you recognize that this is the state of consciousness in which you are residing, it is crucial, it is critical that you stop and make a conscious thought and feeling change. In other words, you have to have a spiritual attitude adjustment. You must tend the flame of love and not allow anything to put that flame out. Sometimes that's a challenge. It's important to remember that retaliation in any form does not help your spiritual growth. Be content to let spiritual law to handle it. The law always works perfectly. You have to be still. Just be aware that it is not your responsibility to sit back and wait to see how the law will work in someone else's life because of a perceived negative encounter with you. Some of you have a tendency to say, you know what? It's going to come and get you. That cosmic 2x4 is coming to get you, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait and see it. You might be sitting for a very long time. You just keep moving on with what you need to do because the law is always going to be the law. It's always going to manifest the way it needs to. And you may not see it, but that's okay. Take special effort and concentration sometime on your part to stop a negative reaction and substitute it with one that is loving and uplifting, especially when you're in the midst of that challenge. But in the midst of that experience, your focus may be on the situation and not on God's presence within you. That's the problem. That presence manifests as the fire of that holy, sacred love at your core. Now, this proves the need to stay consciously aware and maintain a connection with our Father, Mother, God. You have to be still. Bless you. You have to be still. And that makes it easier to step back into the awareness of God's presence when you're moving through a life challenge. Because that's where you want to be. You want to be consciously aware of His presence. Because when things are flying around your head and stuff is falling all apart, you're not consciously aware sometimes. You're in the midst of that activity of whatever it is that's happening. You have to be able to step back and say, whoa, hold up. This isn't my truth. Let me step back for a second and come back to center. In the depth of your challenge, you may feel a degree of separation from God, but remember that you are never alone. The presence of God never leaves because God can't be separated from His creation. Cannot be separated from our Father. Sacred fire within will always continue to burn, but you have to keep tending to it. Make sure that those embers don't get down to a little tiny redness there. You want to keep it flaming. Hebrews 13:5 NLT tells us, I will never leave you. I will never abandon you. God is sovereign. God is faithful. Each experience we come face to face with brings continued growth experiences, and we have to be grateful for those experiences. We affirm the strength to withstand any and all pressures, the ability to see beyond the outward appearances, and the insight to hear the real truth within the context of all conversations that we have. Because you know you have that conversation, and then you have the real conversation. You have to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. It's your responsibility to see God's presence in every experience and every person that you encounter, good, bad, or indifference. It's your responsibility to do that. Your strength in this life existence is the understanding that you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual laws. That's your saving grace right there. By knowing who you really are, keeps you connected to the truth of being and assures you that all of your experiences provide you with an opportunity to grow and to become stronger. That's what we have those experiences for. If you think God doesn't hear you calling, if you think he doesn't hear you calling out to him when you say, oh Lord, he hears you calling. The problem's not in God's hearing, but in your own. You may be so busy calling out that you fail to hear his answer. You're so busy doing this, you can't hear. Sometimes you have to call out and just be still. Just be still. He's heard you. He's heard you. And he will answer you. But you have to be quiet enough to hear the answer that he's sending to you. Remember that in calling out, you're actually reaching within, because that's where he resides. So even though we call out, we're not calling out to something out here. We're calling inward is what we're actually doing. That's where God resides. Remember, the presence of God within is really the core and the reason for our existence. Regardless of what's going on in your life, you have a special connection to God, a connection that can never be severed. So you have to do your part. It always comes back to little old you. Do your part. Tend to that sacred flame that burns within you, and do not allow anything to put out your fire. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. We're going to do some work today with energy, sound, and tone. Since we've got some things going on in the world, Mother Earth is shaking her rattle. She's saying, y'all better wake up. I'm playing a tune. You guys better pay attention. So we're going to do some mantras. We're going to do some chanting this morning. And we're going to do the mantra to Durga to invoke a force field of divine protection out to the world. Okay? We can't do anything with what has already happened, but we can send that force field out to try and, what's the word that I'm looking for? Minimize, thank you, Ray. To minimize anything else that may come down the pipe. So we're going to do the Om Dom Durga Ye Namaha. And that's spoken with force. Om Dom Durga Ye Namaha. Bringing in the energy of Durga. Saying, okay, we're sending out this divine protection, this divine force field for the world, okay, particularly for Chile. Anything else they've got coming down the pipe, we want to kind of hedge their bets just a little bit. We still have Haiti that we've got out there that's still having some issues. We're going to try and hedge our bets here a little bit. So we're going to say that 9 times. And don't worry about what the person on the side of you, people have a tendency that when they chant, they're like, oh, I don't want to sound too loud for the people. You're going to bring this up from your heart center. This is spiritual work that we're doing. This is not just something to fill time. This is the work that we do. You are light workers. Let's do some light worker work. Om Dom Durga Ye Namaha. We're going to do it 9 times, and then we'll go into the Om Namah Shiva, and we'll do that 9 times.